What I'm about to tell you today is something that deeply hurt me, but needs to be shared. My name is Anthony Silverstein. I'm 78 years old with a few life scars to show for it. I worked as a pharmacist for 43 years at the only pharmacy in Millfield, a small town in rural Pennsylvania. I knew every medication, every warning label, every contraindication. Ironically, it was this knowledge that saved me when my own flesh and blood tried to drug me to steal what I'd built with so much sweat and hard work. It's difficult for an old father like me to admit that the son I once carried in my arms thought about erasing me from this world before my time. The pharmacy was my second home. I'd get up at 5 a.m. and only return home long after the sun had said goodbye. While other fathers watched their sons' football games, I was behind the counter doing calculations, organizing medications, serving those in need. My wife, Teresa, God rest her soul, held down the fort at home while I put bread on the table and secured a future for our 3 children. Marcus, my oldest and the one who betrayed me, was the one I pushed hardest to study. I paid for private college, an apartment in Philadelphia, a brand new car, all with hard-earned money. The house they wanted to take from me was built brick by brick, saving by saving over 32 years. Before continuing this story, I'd like to thank the Grandpa's Voice channel for allowing me to share my story. And I ask you watching to subscribe to the channel. Leave your like, comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. Every day there's a new story here from people like me, who've lived long and learned that in life, you always need to keep your eyes open, even with those you trust most. I'll now tell you how I noticed something wasn't right. Like an old pharmacist who knows every chemical reaction, I started documenting the signs long before they imagined, but I needed proof. And that's when fate gave me a little help. I was born in 1947 on a small farm near Millfield. My father, Mr. Joseph, raised pigs and grew a bit of everything: corn, beans, potatoes. Life was simple, but we never went hungry. We were 6 siblings and I was the third. From an early age I was interested in plants and their effects. My grandmother, Martha, was a healer and knew the power of every herb in the woods. It was from her that I learned the difference between what heals and what kills. School was far, about 3 miles that I walked every day. I was the only one of my siblings who made it to high school. At 16, I got a job as an assistant at Mr. Albert's pharmacy. The old pharmacist saw something in me and began teaching me everything about medications. "This boy has good hands," he would tell customers. When I was 20, I gathered courage and some savings. I took a bus to Philadelphia and enrolled in pharmacy school. I worked during the day and studied at night. I slept 4 hours a day, but never complained. I returned at 23 with my degree, and Mr. Albert made me a proposal. "Anthony, I'm getting old and my children don't want anything to do with the pharmacy. If you stay here for 5 more years, I'll sell you the business at a friendly price." I worked harder than ever during those 5 years. I knew each customer by name. I knew by heart the medications each one took. When the pharmacy finally became mine in 1975, I cried like a child. It was around this time that I met Teresa. She was a teacher at the local school, a serious and hard-working woman like me. We married in 1976 in a simple but beautiful ceremony. The honeymoon was just a weekend in Pittsburgh because on Monday I needed to open the pharmacy. Teresa never complained about my dedication to work. On the contrary, she would say, "Anthony, this commitment of yours is what will secure our children's future." And then came the children. First Marcus in 1977, then Lucy in 1980, and finally Ryan in 1982. The house became small, but happiness was abundant. Teresa stopped teaching for a while to care for the children, which tightened our budget even more. So I started opening the pharmacy earlier and closing it later. On holidays, when everyone was resting, I took advantage to do inventory and place orders. When Marcus turned 10, I realized the boy was intelligent, getting the best grades in his class. I decided then that he would have the opportunity I never had. He would go to college. I started saving every penny that was left over. I opened a savings account just for this. On his birthdays, instead of expensive toys, I would put a little money in this account and say, "Son, this is your future growing." He didn't understand very well at the time, but I knew what I was doing. As the years passed, our assets grew slowly. In 1985, I managed to buy a good piece of land in an area that was increasing in value. I paid in 24 installments, tightening our belts even more. In 1990, I started building the house that would be our definitive home. I went slowly, one part at a time. First the kitchen and one bedroom, where we moved in with walls still unfinished. The living room came next, then 2 more bedrooms, and only in 1992 did I manage to finish the bathrooms with proper tiling. The complete finishing only came in 1995. Every brick in that house had the sweat of my brow. The pharmacy also grew. I bought a computer in 1998, even without knowing how to use it properly. I hired 2 employees and increased the inventory. I was the first in town to work with compounded medications. People trusted me. They came from other towns just to buy at my pharmacy. Mr. Anthony doesn't sell medicine, he sells health, they would say. In 2000, Marcus was accepted into a business program at a private college in Philadelphia. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I sold the car I had just finished paying for to secure his enrollment and first semester. I bought a small apartment for him to live in, sharing with another student. Every month I sent money for rent, food, and tuition. I never missed a payment, even when times got tough with competition from large pharmacy chains that arrived in the region. Lucy decided to be a teacher like her mother and studied locally. Ryan wasn't interested in studying. He preferred to work as a sales representative, traveling throughout the state. Teresa and I were left alone in the big house, but it was a silence of mission accomplished. In 2017, Teresa fell ill, pancreatic cancer, the kind that when discovered is already advanced. I used all my contacts to get the best doctors, the best treatments. I sold a plot of land I had bought for retirement to pay for expenses. Even so, within 6 months, she was gone. It was as if half my heart had been ripped out. That's when things began to change. Marcus, already graduated and working for a company in Philadelphia, started visiting more often. At first I thought it was a son's concern. He always asked about my medications, if I was taking them correctly, if I was eating well. Sometimes he brought his wife Denise, a woman about 10 years younger than him, always well-dressed and with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Dad, don't you think this house is too big for you alone?" he began to ask frequently. "Wouldn't it be better to sell it and buy a smaller apartment, easier to maintain?" I always answered that this house held his mother's memories, that here I felt close to her. He wouldn't insist, but I noticed something changing in his gaze. During one of these visits, I noticed that he and Denise whispered a lot when they thought I wasn't nearby. Once I caught a snippet of the conversation. "He won't live forever, and this house must be worth about $700,000 today," she said. Marcus responded something I couldn't hear. That was the first warning sign I had, but I still didn't want to believe the worst. The months following Teresa's death were the most difficult. Loneliness is a silent companion that settles into the corners of the house. The nights were long, and I found myself talking to her portrait in the living room. I retired from the pharmacy, selling the business to a larger chain. It wasn't what I wanted, but times had changed, and competition became too fierce for an old pharmacist with old-fashioned methods. It was during this time that Marcus intensified his visits. At first I felt genuine relief, a son concerned about his widowed father. What could be more natural? He started bringing Denise more frequently, and even Lucas, my 7-year-old grandson, would come along occasionally. The boy was the joy of the house. He ran through the rooms, played in the yard where his uncles once played. Seeing Lucas there gave me a sense of continuity, as if a piece of Teresa was still alive in that little smile. During one of these visits, Marcus arrived with a folder full of papers. "Dad, I've been thinking, you're alone in this huge house. You have to take care of the garden, maintenance. It's not a life for someone who has worked so hard. We could do an exchange." "Exchange? What do you mean, son?" I asked while serving coffee. "We have that apartment in Philadelphia, remember? Where I lived during college and then we rented out. It's empty now. You could move there. It's small but comfortable. It has 24-hour security. It's close to everything." "And what would happen to this house?" I asked, already suspicious. "We would move here. Lucas would have space to play. It would be close to his school. And most importantly, you wouldn't be alone. We would visit you every weekend. It seemed like a reasonable proposal, but something in his tone of voice didn't convince me. That apartment in Philadelphia was worth at most 1 to 3 of the value of my house. Besides, I knew every corner of this town. I had my friends, my routine. In Philadelphia, I would just be a displaced old man. I'll think about it, son. It's not an easy decision. His face showed slight disappointment, quickly disguised with a smile. Of course, Dad. No rush. That night after they left, I sat pondering that conversation. I remembered the pharmacy, how I could identify when a customer was lying about their symptoms to get controlled medication. There was a pattern, the excessively friendly smile, the gaze that never fixed for too long, the insistence disguised as concern. Marcus was showing all these signs. The following week, I received a visit from Ryan, my youngest son. Unlike his brother, he was always more direct. Dad, did Marcus talk to you about his idea? He did. What do you think about it? Ryan hesitated, looked around as if searching for the right words. Look, Dad, I don't want to create trouble in the family, but be careful. Marcus has been having serious financial problems. The company where he worked fired him 6 months ago, and he's hidden this from everyone. He's living off odd jobs, and Denise keeps spending. That was like a punch to the stomach. 6 months unemployed, and I didn't even know. How can a father be so distant from his own son's life? How did you find this out, Ryan? I ran into a former colleague of his by chance. The guy was surprised when I mentioned Marcus was doing well in his new job. He said his entire team was laid off at the beginning of the year. In the days that followed, I started paying more attention. I noticed that Marcus's car, once new and shiny, now had some scratches and dull paint. Denise's clothes, always designer brands, seemed to be repeated. And Lucas? Well, the boy was always wearing the same sneakers, already a bit worn out. I decided to do a test. On a Thursday, when I knew Marcus would supposedly be at work, I called his cell phone. Hello, Dad, did something happen? His voice sounded worried. No, son. I just wanted to know if you could stop by the grocery store after work and bring me some supplies. I have a little back pain today. Oh, sure, Dad. I get off at 6. I'll stop at the store and get to your place around 7. Is that okay? Perfect, son, thank you. I hung up and stared at the phone. If he had really been working, he would have mentioned some meeting, some commitment. But no. He simply made up a departure time for a job that no longer existed. The following week, Marcus appeared again with the folder of documents. So, Dad, have you thought about our proposal? I have, son. But you know how old people are, right? We get attached to places. This house has too much history for me. He sighed, visibly annoyed. Dad, you need to be practical. What if you fall here alone? Who will help you? In the apartment, there's a doorman, close neighbors. I understand your concern, son, but I'm not ready to leave here. That's when Denise, who had remained silent until then, intervened. Mr. Anthony, we're thinking about your well-being. Marcus worries so much about you. He even mentioned refinancing the house to make adaptations for you. Handrails, support bars in the bathroom. That put me on alert. Refinance the house, a house that had been completely paid off for more than 20 years. Why mess with something that didn't need to be messed with? No need for that, Denise. I'm still strong and healthy. That same night after they left, I went to my office and checked all my documents. Property deed, certificates. Everything was in order, but something told me I needed to be even more alert. The next morning I called Dr. Paul, a longtime friend attorney who had handled my legal matters since I bought the pharmacy. Dr. Paul, I need legal advice. Of course, Mr. Anthony. How can I help? I told him about Marcus's insistence, the financial suspicions, the refinancing suggestion. The doctor was silent for a few seconds. Mr. Anthony, let's schedule an in-person conversation. I think you need to take some precautions. We met the next day at his office downtown. Dr. Paul, already in his 70s, was an experienced and sensible man. Mr. Anthony, unfortunately, what you're telling me is more common than you might think. Children who are going through financial difficulties and see their parents' assets as a quick solution. What do you suggest, Doctor? Let's do this. You'll give me a specific power of attorney. If they try to make any movement with your house or your assets, they'll need my signature too. It's a safeguard. I left the office with less weight on my shoulders, but with an even heavier heart. I never imagined I would need to protect myself from my own son. The following weeks were apparently calm. Marcus seemed to have given up on the exchange idea, and his visits became less frequent. That's when I started to feel something strange. After dinner that we shared when they came to visit, I would begin to feel an unusual drowsiness. It wasn't the natural tiredness of a man my age. It was something more intense, as if someone had increased the weight of gravity just on me. On one of these nights, I could barely make it to the bedroom. I collapsed on the bed and slept a deep, dreamless sleep. The next morning, I found a document on the kitchen table. It was an authorization for the sale of property with a space for my signature. It was dated the previous night. It was as if lightning had struck my mind. They were drugging me. I, a pharmacist with 43 years of experience, was being drugged in my own home. Shame and anger mixed in a knot in my throat. That same morning, I went to the pharmacy where I knew the new manager. "Richard, I need you to do me a discreet favor." "Of course, Mr. Anthony. What do you need?" "I want you to tell me if Marcus or Denise bought any controlled medication here recently." Richard hesitated, concerned about professional confidentiality, but eventually gave in when he saw my distress. "Mr. Anthony, Denise was here 2 weeks ago. She bought clonazepam. Said it was for her mother who was having insomnia. Clonazepam, a potent benzodiazepine prescription drug. Mixed with a little alcohol, like the wine we always had with dinner, it would be more than enough to leave me completely disoriented. At that moment, I made a decision. I needed concrete evidence. My word against theirs wasn't enough. I needed to catch them in the act. I called Marcus that same afternoon. "Son, I was thinking, it's been a while since we had dinner together. How about you all come over on Saturday? I'll prepare that lasagna your mother used to make." "Sure, Dad, great idea. Should we bring wine?" "No need, son. I have a special bottle saved for an occasion like this." On Saturday, they arrived punctually at 7 p.m. Lucas was with them, which gave me a pang of guilt for what I was about to do, but I needed to know the truth. During dinner, I pretended to drink the wine, but in reality, I only wet my lips. I carefully observed when Marcus and Denise exchanged glances after I served the second glass. After dessert, I announced, "I'm a little tired. I think I'll go to bed early tonight." "Of course, Dad. We'll clean up the kitchen." "You rest," replied Marcus with exaggerated solicitude. I went to the bedroom, changed clothes, and lay on the bed. I waited about half an hour, then got up silently. I took my cell phone and activated the recording function. I slightly opened the bedroom door and heard voices coming from the living room. "He must be sleeping by now. The medicine never fails," Denise was saying. "Let's wait a little longer. Last time he was still somewhat conscious." I retreated back into the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. It was true then. My own son was drugging me. For what? To make me sign documents while I wasn't fully conscious. I decided I needed more evidence. I left the bedroom making a little noise, as if I were drowsy. "Marcus, Denise, are you still there?" "We're in the living room, Dad," Marcus answered with an artificially calm voice. I walked there, pretending to stagger a bit. Denise quickly hid something in her purse. "I think the wine made me a little dizzy," I said, sitting heavily on the sofa. "You need to rest, Dad. Let's help you back to bed." "No, son, since we're here, I wanted to talk about that idea of yours, about the house." His eyes instantly lit up. "Oh, yes, Dad. What have you decided?" "I was thinking, maybe you're right. This house is indeed too big for me alone." Marcus and Denise exchanged quick glances. "I'm glad you understand, Mr. Anthony," said Denise with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We only want what's best for you." "I know, dear. I know," I murmured, closing my eyes as if very drowsy. "Dad, I have some documents here that we can get started on. They're just simple authorizations." "Sure, son. Just give me a minute." I pretended to fall asleep right there on the sofa. Through half-closed eyelids, I saw when Marcus approached Denise and whispered, "He's at the right point, get the papers." That night I managed to escape by signing only one document, which I purposely signed illegibly. I said I was very dizzy and that we would talk about it again the next day. After they left, I searched through the kitchen trash and found an empty clonazepam package. I kept it as evidence. The next morning, I called Dr. Paul and told him what had happened. "Mr. Anthony, this is extremely serious. It's a crime to adulterate food or drinks with medications without consent. You need to report this." "Report my own son, doctor. I understand your hesitation. But think, if they're willing to drug you, what else might they be willing to do?" That question tormented me for days. I knew I needed to act, but the idea of exposing my son, of possibly seeing him in jail, was devastating. At the same time, I couldn't continue living in fear in my own home. It was then that I elaborated a plan that would use their greed against themselves. I knew it would be painful, but necessary. After all, as Mr. Albert always used to say at the pharmacy, sometimes the medicine is bitter, but the cure is certain. My plan began to take shape when I remembered a particularity of my profession. As a pharmacist, I was always meticulous with records and documentation. For years, I kept a detailed diary of all suspicious activities related to controlled medications. It was a practice I adopted after the pharmacy was inspected in the 90s. This habit ended up extending to my personal life. Since I began to suspect Marcus and Denise's behavior, I started recording everything. Dates of visits, strange behaviors, unexplained drowsiness after meals. I had even noted the exact day I found the clonazepam package in the trash. This diary would be a fundamental part of my plan. The second element emerged when I talked to Lucy, my middle child. She lived in Pittsburgh, a few hours away, and didn't visit as often due to her work as a university professor. When I told her my suspicions, she was horrified. "Dad, this can't continue. I'll take time off and stay with you." "No, daughter, I have a better plan. I need you to continue your life normally, but help me with some things from a distance." With Lucy's help, I managed to install a discreet camera system in the living room and kitchen. They weren't visible, strategically hidden in common objects: a picture frame, a wall clock, an artificial plant. Now I could have visual proof of what happened when I wasn't present or when I was supposedly unconscious. The third element of my plan came from an unexpected source: Mrs. Mabel, my 82-year-old neighbor. Despite her advanced age, Mrs. Mabel had eagle eyes and an insatiable curiosity. Her window directly faced the entrance to my house, and she knew the routine of every resident on the street. "Mr. Anthony, those two have been coming and going from your house when you're not there," she confided to me one day while watering the garden plants. "Just last week I saw them arrive with a folder full of papers. They stayed for about 40 minutes and left in a hurry." That confirmed my suspicions. They were using copies of the key I had given Marcus for emergencies to enter my house in my absence, probably looking for documents, will, anything that could give them control over my assets. I asked Mrs. Mabel to continue observing and to let me know whenever she saw suspicious movement. In exchange, I promised to bring her the cheese biscuits she so loved from the downtown bakery. The fourth and most important element of my plan involved Dr. Paul. On a Wednesday afternoon, I went to his office with an unusual proposal. "Doctor, I want to sell my house." He looked at me, astonished. "But Mr. Anthony, you always said you would never part with that house. It's the memory of Mrs. Teresa, of the children growing up." "Yes, doctor, but don't worry, I'm not really going to get rid of it." I explained my plan to him. We would simulate a sale of the house. On paper, I would sell the property to Dr. Paul himself for a symbolic value. It would be a legitimate contract registered at the notary's office, but with a secret buyback clause that would allow me to repurchase the property for the same value at any time. It was a legal maneuver that would ensure that even if I signed any document under coercion or under the influence of medication, the house would no longer be officially mine to transfer. "It's a risky strategy, Mr. Anthony, but I understand your reasons. We'll prepare everything with the utmost secrecy." The following week, with all documents prepared and signed, I was ready for the final confrontation. I called Marcus. "Son, I've been thinking a lot about that conversation of ours. I think it's time to resolve this house issue." "Good, Dad. Do you want us to come over today?" No, son, I have a commitment today. How about Saturday afternoon? You can come have coffee with me? Sure, Dad. We'll be there. Before Saturday, I carefully prepared the scene. I activated all the hidden cameras. I checked if they were recording correctly. I arranged with Dr. Paul that he would arrive by chance, an hour after the start of the conversation with Marcus and Denise. I also asked Mrs. Mabel to stay alert to any strange movement. That morning I made sure to go to the market, the bakery, the bank, places where I would be seen by several people. I wanted to establish an alibi that I was lucid and active that day, in case they later tried to claim that I wasn't in full possession of my mental faculties. At 3 p.m. the doorbell rang. Marcus and Denise arrived without Lucas this time. "Where's my grandson?" I asked, genuinely disappointed not to see the boy. He stayed at my mother's house, Dad. We thought it best since we're going to deal with adult matters. I served coffee and cookies in the living room, as I always did when we received visitors. I noticed that Denise was carrying a folder similar to the one Marcus had brought on previous occasions. "So, Dad, you said you wanted to resolve the house issue." "Yes, son. I've been thinking a lot. You're right. This house is too big for me alone. And Lucas deserves a yard like this to play in." Marcus's eyes shone in a way that deeply saddened me. It wasn't the shine of gratitude or emotion. It was the shine of greed being satisfied. "I'm glad you understand, Dad. It will be better for everyone." "Yes, it will be," I replied, taking a sip of coffee. "We just need to sort out the details." "Actually, Dad, I've already taken care of everything," he said, opening the folder. "I have here the exchange contract, the transfer of the apartment to your name and the transfer of the house to ours. We just need your signature." "Wow, how efficient you are, son," I commented with a touch of sarcasm that he didn't notice. "But you know how old people are, right? I like to read everything carefully. I'll take these papers to my room and have a look." "No need, Dad. I can explain each clause to you. It's all standard." Still, I prefer to read alone. "I have all the time in the world now, right? I'll be back in about 20 minutes. I took the documents and went to the bedroom, closing the door. I immediately activated my cell phone and accessed the cameras in the living room. Marcus and Denise were talking in low voices. "He's very lucid today," Denise was saying, visibly concerned. "We need to act quickly. If he takes these documents to his lawyer, we're done for." "Did you bring the medicine?" "I did. But how are we going to give it to him now? He already had coffee." "Leave it to me. I'll prepare another coffee. Say this one got cold." I saw Denise get up and go to the kitchen. Through the camera installed there, I observed when she took a small bottle from her purse and poured a white powder into a clean cup. Then she poured coffee and stirred well. At that moment, I decided it was time to return to the living room. I left the documents on the bed and came out of the bedroom holding only one paper in my hand, a copy of the house deed. You won't believe it. I found this old deed. Look at the date, 1995, when I finally finished paying for the house. Marcus and Denise smiled forcibly. She approached with the coffee cup. "Mr. Anthony, I made fresh coffee. That other one must be cold by now." "Ah, how kind, Denise. Thank you." I took the cup but didn't drink. I placed it on the table beside me. "Before signing anything, I'd like to confirm some details. This apartment in Philadelphia, it's paid off, right?" "Of course, Dad. Everything's in order," Marcus replied a little too quickly. "And its documentation is in order." "Yes, everything is regularized." Interesting, because according to the property management company that administers the condominium, you're 3 months behind on property taxes and condo fees. Marcus's face visibly paled. "How do you know that?" "I called them." "Well, I'm old, but I'm not foolish, son." There was a moment of tense silence. Denise looked at the coffee cup, still untouched. "Your coffee will get cold, Mr. Anthony." "Ah, yes, the coffee." I picked up the cup, brought it to my lips, but didn't drink. I just pretended a small sip. "You know, Denise, I worked with medications all my life. I developed a refined palate for certain substances. This coffee has a peculiar taste. It tastes like clonazepam, don't you think?" Her face went livid. Marcus rose abruptly. "What are you talking about, Dad? That's absurd." "Is it?" Then you wouldn't mind if I took this cup for analysis, right? This is ridiculous, exclaimed Denise, trying to take the cup from my hand. I quickly moved it away. You know what's more ridiculous, Denise? A son and daughter-in-law trying to drug an elderly person to steal his house. Marcus advanced toward me, his face contorted with anger. Enough of this conversation. Just sign these papers, you stubborn old man. It was at that exact moment that I decided to execute the final part of my plan. I looked at my watch. There were only a few minutes left before Dr. Paul was due to arrive. I needed to buy time, and more importantly, I needed a recorded confession. You know, son, I'll have to step out quickly. I forgot I need to pick up some medicine at the pharmacy. We can continue this conversation when I get back. No, Dad. We're going to resolve this now. His voice was laden with desperation and anger. All right. Just let me get a glass of water first. My throat is dry. I got up and went to the kitchen. There, I quickly sent a message to Dr. Paul. Come now. When I returned to the living room, I announced, Well, I'm going to step out for a bit. I'll be back soon. You're not going anywhere, shouted Marcus, blocking the door. Son, what is this? I can't even leave my own house. This house will soon no longer be yours, old man. Sign the papers and it's done. That was the first time Marcus had called me old man with such contempt. It was like a knife through my heart. My own son, that boy I had carried in my arms when he was born, for whom I had dedicated an entire lifetime of work. At that moment I made a decision. Instead of going out through the front door, I quickly went to the back door, as if I were escaping. As expected, Marcus and Denise came after me. I went out and closed the door behind me, but I didn't run away. Instead, I went around the house and re-entered through the side kitchen door, which was hidden by a bush and which they didn't know well. I quickly went to my bedroom and hid in the large, solid wood wardrobe that I had built with my own hands decades ago. Through the crack in the door, I saw when Marcus and Denise returned inside the house, confused at having lost sight of me. Where the hell did he go? Asked Marcus, irritated. He can't have gone far. Let's look around the block. No, wait, let's resolve something else first. Marcus took a small bottle from his pocket. If he comes back, we'll put an extra dose of this in his coffee. I want this old man completely drugged. Don't you think that's risky? What if someone gets suspicious? Who's going to be suspicious? Everyone knows old people take sleeping pills. If something happens, we'll say he medicated himself incorrectly. My heart froze upon hearing that. If something happens? How far were they willing to go? And what if he still doesn't sign? Then we'll do it the hard way. I have a friend who perfectly forges signatures. Have you thought about that? But what about his lawyer, that nosy old man? He won't be in the way for long. My father trusts me. He'll transfer the power of attorney to my name. After that, it's just a matter of time until we have everything. At that moment, I activated the recording on my cell phone. Every word they said was being registered. Let's give the old man black label medicine to make him sleep and make him sign the house transfer, Marcus said, summing up their plan in one sentence that condemned them both. That's when I decided to come out of the wardrobe. I pushed the door forcefully, making it hit the wall with a bang that startled them. Both turned around, mouths open, seeing me standing there with my phone in hand. You forgot that the house has already been sold. To my lawyer who's arriving with the police. Marcus's expression was one of total shock. Denise dropped the medicine bottle, which shattered on the floor. What are you talking about, Dad? Stammered Marcus. I'm talking about you falling into your own trap. First, I have everything recorded. The threats, the plan to drug me, even the mention of forging signatures. Second, the house is no longer mine to transfer. Legally, it has belonged to Dr. Paul since last week. At that exact moment, the doorbell rang. Marcus and Denise exchanged terrified looks. That must be Dr. Paul, and maybe he's not alone, I commented with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. Indeed, when I opened the door, Dr. Paul was accompanied by 2 police officers. He had followed my instructions to the letter. Mr. Anthony, is everything all right? He asked, noticing my tense expression. Now it is, Doctor. Now it is. The officers came in, and I briefly explained the situation, showing the recordings on my phone and the images from the hidden cameras. While they were taking notes, Marcus tried one last card. Dad, this is a misunderstanding. I would never do anything to hurt you. I looked at him with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. Marcus, you already have. And the worst part isn't trying to take my house, it's destroying a father's trust. That can't be fixed. The police asked Marcus and Denise to accompany them to the station to give statements. Before they left, Marcus tried to approach me, but the officers prevented him. Dad, please think of Lucas. I am thinking of him, son. I'm thinking about what kind of example he would have if you had succeeded today. After they left, I collapsed on the sofa, physically and emotionally exhausted. Dr. Paul sat beside me. Mr. Anthony, are you all right? No, Paul, I'm not. I just turned in my own son to the police. You did what needed to be done. They could have gone much further than they already did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about Lucas, my innocent grandson, who would now be confused by the whole situation. I thought about Teresa and what she would say if she were alive, but mainly I thought about Marcus, that cheerful boy who once ran through the same yard where I now felt so lonely. The next morning, Lucy arrived from Pittsburgh. She had taken the first bus as soon as she heard what had happened. Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have come earlier, stayed closer. Don't blame yourself, daughter. The choice was his, not yours. In the days that followed, the news spread through the small town. Some neighbors came to offer support. Others kept their distance as if family betrayal were contagious. Mrs. Mabel appeared every day with some home-cooked food, insisting that I needed to eat well. Marcus and Denise were indicted for attempted fraud, administration of medication without consent and threats. Being first-time offenders, and with Dr. Paul's intervention, they were able to respond to the charges while free. The legal process would follow its course. A week after the incident, I received an unexpected visit. It was Ryan, my youngest son, bringing Lucas by the hand. Dad, the boy was asking about Grandpa. I thought it would be good for both of you to see each other. Lucas ran into my arms, not understanding the complexity of the situation. To him, I was just the grandpa who told stories and hid candies in his pockets. Grandpa, why are Dad and Mom sad? I looked into those innocent eyes and felt a lump in my throat. Sometimes, Lucas, adults make wrong choices and get sad about the consequences, but that doesn't change how much they love you, nor how much I love you. He seemed to accept this simplified explanation and was soon playing in the yard as if nothing had happened. Ryan sat beside me on the porch, watching his son play. Dad, Lucy and I talked. We want you to come live with me in Erie. I have a good house with a room just for you. Lucas could visit on weekends. And this house, your mother's house. We could rent it out, save the money for Lucas's future, or sell it and buy something smaller for you in Erie, near my house. Let me think about it, son. I have many decisions to make now. In reality, I was already inclined to accept the proposal. The house, which was once full of happy memories, now also carried the memory of betrayal. Perhaps it was time for a new beginning, to write a new chapter. As for Marcus, I decided that I wouldn't withdraw the complaint, but I also wouldn't do anything to aggravate his situation. Justice would take its course, and he would have to deal with the consequences of his choices. He was still my son, despite everything. 3 months have passed since that fateful afternoon when I confronted my own son. Time has a strange way of healing wounds, but also of teaching us lessons that remain engraved in the heart. I ended up accepting Ryan's proposal and moved to Erie. The house in Millfield, the one I built with so much sweat and dedication, was put up for rent. The money goes directly into a savings account in Lucas's name. After all, the boy is not to blame for his parents' mistakes. Dr. Paul took care of all the legal aspects of transferring the house back to my name and then the rental contract. As always, he was more than a lawyer. He was a faithful friend in the most difficult hours. Before moving, I stopped by the pharmacy where I had worked for so many years. Richard, the current manager, received me with a tight hug. Mr. Anthony, you'll be missed around here. A lot of people still ask about you, you know? They're different times, Richard. Life goes on, and we have to go with it. Ryan's house in Erie is spacious and airy. I have a room just for me with a window that opens onto a small garden. Ryan installed support bars in the bathroom without my having to ask. Not that I need them now, but it's good to know they're there, in case time takes its toll on my legs, as it's starting to take on my vision. Lucy comes to visit us once a month. She managed to get a transfer to a university closer by in Cleveland, which makes visits easier. On Sunday afternoons, we play dominoes or cards, remembering stories from their childhood. We talk about Teresa and how proud she would be to see the family reunited. Marcus. Well, Marcus is a separate chapter. The legal process follows its course, but at the request of the lawyers, I accepted a deal. He and Denise will have to do community service for 2 years, in addition to participating in a psychological monitoring program. I didn't ask for prison. As I told the judge, jail wouldn't fix what was broken inside him. I haven't had direct contact with him since the incident. I heard from Ryan that he lost the apartment in Philadelphia due to accumulated debts. They're living in a modest rental. Denise left him a month ago, taking Lucas to her mother's house. It seems the temptation of easy money was stronger than the love between them. Lucas comes to visit me every 2 weeks. Ryan goes to pick him up in Philadelphia, where he now lives with his maternal grandmother. It's 6 hours on the road, round trip. But my youngest son insists the boy needs good references in his life, Dad, he tells me. On the afternoons when Lucas is here, I teach him what my father taught me: to fish in the river that passes near the house, to recognize the constellations in the night sky, to respect the elderly and the humble. Simple things, but they form a man's character. During one of these afternoons, while fishing, Lucas asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Grandpa, why did Dad want your house?" I took a deep breath, thinking about the answer. How to explain greed and betrayal to an 8-year-old child? "Lucas, sometimes adults think things are more important than people. It's a very serious mistake, because things we lose, break, sell, but people, when we lose them, we can't buy them back or fix them. Your father forgot that for a while, and he'll remember one day." I hope so, my son. I hope so. That's the truth. I still hope, not for me, but for Marcus himself. Because carrying the weight of betrayal must be as painful as suffering betrayal, and because, despite everything, he is still my son. Last week, I received a letter. The envelope was crumpled, as if it had been opened and closed several times before finally being mailed. The handwriting was Marcus's. "Dad, I don't even know where to begin. Maybe with the hardest part. Forgive me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and maybe never will. What we did, what I did, has no justification. I've lost everything. Denise left me. I'm seeing Lucas only once a month under supervision. I've lost the respect of my siblings, my friends, and most importantly yours. But you know what hurts the most? It's knowing that I betrayed not only your trust, but everything you taught me my entire life. Remember when I was little and you would take me to the pharmacy on Sundays? You would show me the medications and say, "Son, this can save a life if used correctly, or take a life if used incorrectly. What makes the difference is the intention of the user." I used it the wrong way, Dad. I used your love against you. I'm in therapy now, not just because the judge ordered it, but because I want to understand how I could stoop so low. The therapist says it was a combination of financial desperation, wounded pride, and opportunism. But I know it was more than that. It was weakness of character. I'm not asking to come back into your life. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to change, to be the man you tried to raise, for me, for Lucas, and who knows, someday for you, your son, if I can still call myself that. Marcus. I read and reread that letter several times. I cried like I hadn't cried since Teresa's death. I haven't responded yet. Some wounds need time to heal completely. Yesterday, while helping Ryan plant tomatoes in the yard, he asked me about the letter. "So, Dad, are you going to respond?" "I will, son, but not now. When the words come from the heart, not from hurt. You're a better man than I am, Dad. In your place, I don't know if I could forgive." It's not about being better, son. It's about understanding that holding a grudge is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only harms ourselves. And that's the lesson I take from these almost 80 years of life. Forgiveness is not a gift we give to others. It's a gift we give to ourselves. It doesn't mean forgetting or pretending nothing happened. It means setting aside the weight of hatred and hurt to be able to move forward. This story I've told you doesn't have a happy ending like in a movie. The family didn't gather around the Christmas table as if nothing had happened. There are wounds that will never completely heal, but it's also not a story without hope. Last night, after Ryan and his wife went to bed, I stayed on the porch looking at the stars. The same moon that illuminated the sky in Erie also illuminated Philadelphia, where my son was trying to rebuild his life. I thought about the letter, his words, the possibility, however remote, of reconciliation. I took a sheet of paper and began to write. Son, forgiveness is a long road that is traveled step by step. I didn't finish the letter, not yet, but the simple fact of having started it is already a step on that road. Life has taught me that greed corrupts even the most sacred bonds, that trusting is necessary but verifying is prudent, that character is revealed not when everything is going well, but when difficulties appear, and mainly, that it's never too late to start over. Today, at 78 years old, I have fewer material possessions than I had a year ago. I lost the house I built with so much sacrifice. I lost the blind trust in my firstborn. I lost the idea of a perfect family. But I gained a wisdom that no money can buy, that our true inheritance is not what we leave in wills but what we leave in hearts. Lucas is coming to visit this weekend. I'm going to teach him how to make a paper boat to float on the river. And maybe tell him stories from his father's childhood, from when Marcus was just a boy with pure dreams before the world hardened him. Because that too is a form of forgiveness, remembering the goodness that existed even when the evil was revealed. If you've made it this far, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. And if you really followed me to the end of this journey, comment below with the word restart. Only those who watched will understand the meaning. I thank the Grandpa's Voice channel for this opportunity to share my story. Who knows, maybe the next one will be even more similar to yours. Remember, it's never too late to rebuild, to forgive, to restart. A tight hug from this old man here, who learned that the greatest wealth in life is the bonds we build and preserve, not the walls we erect.